Hi, good afternoon, good morning, dear investors, dear participants. I hope you can see and hear as well. Glad to have you here in our Q3 interim presentation. It is me, Aavo Kärmas, here together. I'm the CEO of Enefit Green, together with...
Hi, my name is Veiko Räim, CFO of Enefit Green. Happy to have you.
Yeah. Let's do so that we will go through the presentation we have prepared for you, and then we will take questions later. So you can ask your questions in a chat, and then also later sending them to an email address of investor@enefitgreen.ee. So we certainly will reply or answer all your questions. So before we kick off, just a short summary at how we've been doing so far. First of all, we're happy to say that 21st of October was the date when it exactly we have been in Tallinn Stock Exchange for 1 year, and still been growing also in Q3. And as we announced our revised strategy back this June, we said that actually we see more opportunities for a growth, and we expect to grow Enefit Green capacity by 4 times by the end of 2026. And I'm happy to say that in Q3 we've been on track with that. So we have laid the cornerstones for 4 of our wind farms in Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland, which are currently under construction, and also continued with construction of 3 solar parks. Totally, we've been investing around 80 million euros in Q3. And then last but not least, we have also added additional capacity to our pipeline. So just to mention here that we have acquired Tootsi wind farm from Eesti Energia, 74 megawatt onshore wind, and also additional 200 megawatt of solar projects in Estonia. So, but we will elaborate in all of that a bit later on. There are a few things which are impacting our business, and certainly one most important is a power price. So here you can see what the power prices were in Q3 in all countries around the Baltic Sea. So the conclusion is that still the prices remained high, even higher than in Q2 this year, and we all know the reasons. So that basically the main reason still was the high gas prices. We saw the peak prices back in August. Currently, we've seen that the prices have been dropping to warmer weather for this period of time. Also, that there is enough gas what the countries have actually already bought. And if one would ask us that how do we see that what the power price or power prices outlook would look like in Q4 this year, it is really difficult to say. I mean, it depends on many things. That of course, what the gas prices will be in Q4, how the weather will be in Q4, but still we see that the power prices will be high and quite volatile also in a Q4. Second topic which has an impact on our business is everything what is happening around the regulatory issues. So here it's quite a busy slide. I will not go through all the topics here. You can read everything from our report. But what we've seen that many of or most of our countries have taken different regulatory initiatives in order to push fast development of renewables. Maybe the important thing to point out from this slide is actually at the end of September, the EU energy ministers have agreed to have a cap for market revenues at 180 euros per megawatt hour. So it is left for countries to decide what the exact measures will be, and countries or member states should establish their their position by the end of this year, 31st of December, but those measures will be in place from 1st of December until 30th of June next year, and also in around April, European Commission also has they will reveal on the market review what has happened in the power prices meanwhile, and there is option also to kind of prolong those measures. What we know as of today is that Estonia and Latvia have announced to European Commission that they would not use a measure for companies who actually will invest into renewables, those amounts which they have gained with higher prices than 180 megawatts. So we don't know. Lithuania has not revealed or announced its official position yet, but as far as Poland is concerned, there is a draft of a regulation which says that those measures or price cap measures will not apply to production units with a capacity less than 1 megawatt or production units which have been awarded with CFD, contract for difference prices previously. So as Enefit Green does not have a bigger production unit and 1 megawatt, and then all our production units are awarded with CFD, we do not see any impact for our Polish operations. And as far as Finland is concerned, in Finland we do not know exactly the state's position, but as we don't have any operations in Finland as of today, so there is also no impact on our Finnish business as well. And maybe last thing to point out or highlight from a slide is that what we have also announced before via stock exchanges that in September the court in Estonia has accepted or satisfied the claimant's request for interim protection order. It's all about our Purtse wind farm construction. We have, of course, officially replied and asked for a removal of this order, and we are very sure that, I mean, we are currently constructing a wind farm according to a building permit, so that we are absolutely sure that we have not done anything which is not in accordance with the law or building permits. So if we move on, last thing for which has impact on our business is always wind or wind speed, to be more precise. So as most of our electricity is produced from wind farms, so wind speed is really crucial. And as you can see from a slide that in Estonia, the wind speed in the third quarter was the lowest in the last 3 years. I mean, if you compare different quarters, so that it has been even lower than Q2, which is usually the kind of the lowest period of the year. Certainly had an impact on our results from Estonian wind farms. In Lithuania, also wind speed in Q3 was slightly below from results of last 2 years. But this is, we just have to admit or show as a fact, and there's nothing we can do on that. But what we can do is have a good availability of our production units. So when it comes to wind farms, so when there is a low wind, we always use those times for maintenance of our wind farms in order to be ready for windy season. So in Estonia, the availability of wind farms was more or less on the same level as last year, around 95%. But in Lithuania, it was lower. It was 92.9%, and it was due to major maintenance in 2 of our wind farms, Šilutė and Sudenai, in a reason I just said before, to use less windy times for maintenance. When you go to availability of CHPs, we see as a very sharp or significant decline compared to Q2 and also compared to Q3 last year, and it was mainly due to our five-week stoppage in our Iru CHP power plant. We we needed to change superheater in Iru power plant. So we planned 5 weeks for that operation. I'm happy to say that actually we managed to do works actually 1.5 days even faster. So our team and all our partners were working 24/7, almost for five weeks, in order to bring it back to operations, and before the heating season starts. And as of today, I mean, it has been back in operations, I think, from October 13th, if my memory serves me right. And I can tell you that since that, the Iru has been operating in 100% availability. So this is very good news. And then solar wind farms availability has remained in high level as usually, almost 100%. So now, if we move on to our development pipeline, so we have said that by 2026 we expect to grow 4 times, meaning that our electrical capacity will be around 1900 megawatts. So here you can see how we've been doing so far. So we expect that by the end of 2023, our operational capacity will be 646 megawatts, and the projects which have already received final investment decision, the capacity is around 840 megawatts. So totally, the total capacity will be by the end of next year, roughly 1500 megawatts. And if we move on to our projects which are currently under construction, so 4 wind farms and then 3 solar parks. So basically what we can say is that everything is going according to our original plans. The projects are under construction. Maybe the only thing to highlight from here is Šilale 2 wind farm, where we have shifted the COD date by 2 months to quarter 2 next year, and there are 2 reasons. So that the turbines we have not been able to connect the turbines to main grid in time due to different reasons. And the second thing was that there was a damage of one tower section for one of the turbines. But anyway, we will anyway start to produce electricity already in December with 6 of our turbines, and then going forward when the new turbines will be ready. So all in all, the all annual capacity electrical or actually capacity is 700 gigawatt hours for those projects under construction, meaning annual consumption of 200,000 households. And now, if we have a closer look to our near-term pipeline, what we expect to make investment decision this year and then also next year. So those have been marked with those yellow-orange bars here. So let me guide you through very quickly here. So we expect to make investment decision for Kelme, Sopi and Tootsi wind farms and Estonia PV this year, meaning basically during next 1.5 months. So we have conducted all the tenders. So we're still validating the offers for a turbine supplies and also for a construction. So expect to announce the winners quite soon in order to make investment decision this year, so that the total capacity of those 4 projects is around 318 megawatts. And those are followed by investment decision on projects next year, starting with Sopi PV. So here you see that the capacity is quite sizable. So it is more than 300, strongly more than 300 megawatts of solar and onshore wind. So saying that, we expect that by the end of next year, our total capacity under construction and operating is around 1,500 megawatts. So what has changed compared to Q2 here on that picture? First of all, you cannot see the project, the Stralkovo 40 megawatt solar project in Poland. Why? It is just because that in August we have signed an agreement with distribution system operator so which says that they will reinforce the network latest by mid of 25. We of course expected it to happen faster. So basically we have moved this project a bit further, but it still remains in our long-term pipeline. Second thing is to highlight is a Kelmė 2 project. Previously we had the capacity up to 100 megawatt. Now it is up to 90 megawatts. So it's just because of approval of environmental impact assessment report. And then I'm really happy to say that we have also added new projects to our near-term pipeline, which we have not shown before. So those are two solar projects in Estonia with total capacity around 127 megawatts, Seinapalu and Vändra, which we expect to make a investment decision second half of a next year. And when it comes to our long-term pipeline, so basically no news here. So still our long-term pipeline of onshore wind and solar has remained in a level of 1,300 megawatts, mostly with projects from the Baltics. And still we also have moved forward with offshore projects that Liivi is currently going. Different studies are ongoing in a Liivi project, and we also expect that for Hiiumaa at the end of this year, we know that what will be a how to say it in English, the way of planning, of method of planning the state will use for getting offshore wind planned also for Hiiumaa area. So saying that, all in all, we expect that around 30ish, beginning of 30ish, our capacity can reach up to 4,900 megawatts. So this was all I wanted to share with you, and happy to give it over to Veiko, who will now elaborate more on our results.
Thank you. So Q3 completed. As I mentioned, the production volumes were lower than last year, so both due to wind and availability. So you can see that our electricity production went to 889 gigawatt hours of power produced, and the heat production reduced to 84 gigawatt hours of heat produced. But as the power prices were supporting the revenues, then actually the average price we earned from our power produced and sold was 205 euros per megawatt hour. So less than the market prices that we were showing, but as our part of our production was still under the feed-in tariffs in Lithuania, and this is also a logical development there. In terms of financial results, revenues, EBITDA, and net profits, strong performance. We'll be speaking a bit more about it on next slides. And then finally, in addition to highlights already mentioned by Aavo regarding the acquisition of new projects, we also signed quite a lot of new power purchase agreements to sell our power and hedge our power price for up to 10 years in this quarter. So it was even 3.1 terawatt hours. So we'll be spending a few minutes on that as well. So revenue growth, first of all. So again, high electricity prices impacting mostly wind and CHP segments in Estonia and Latvia, slightly also in Lithuania. So total revenues grow by 23.9 million euros to 60 million euros and a bit above that. So this is the main feature in the wind and CHP segments. Actually, second main feature in the CHP segment is pellet sales volume. So there we had one shipment which in last year went at the end of June, it went in beginning of July this year. So it boosts the revenues of CHPs in Q3. But of course, in case one looks at the 9 months in combination, then the impact is much less significant. Finally, solar segment also very visible this quarter, and in addition to good performance and power prices, then actually we also had a one-off event where we exited from the turnkey solutions for smallest customers. As we exited that part of the business, we also sold off our inventory, and it boosted the revenues while not having much impact on the EBITDA in Q3. So if we turn to our profitability measures, then EBITDA grew by 7.2 million euros to 32.7 million euros, so 28% growth year on year. And again, higher power price is of course benefiting us, 14.7 million positive impact, we're looking at together with power production reduction due to the lower wind and zero maintenance, and then a combined effect from power side around 10 million euros, a bit above that. Secondly, where we do see the pellet revenues coming in was the HPM pellet production unit. On the other hand, it has been accompanied by higher variable expenses as biomass prices have been increasing, and also electricity costs in that segment are higher. And finally, the Iru impact, what we have mentioned now, 5 weeks of break, and actually reduced Iru EBITDA compared to last year's same period by 0.6 million euros. So this also held us back a bit from profitability side. Fixed expenses growing. We acknowledge that. So there is new team members that we brought on board, and there's a bit more in development side especially, and there is a bit more also the general inflationary pressure coming through to our results. But all in all, the growth remains moderate. We keep an eye on that. If we now dwell into the segments, then the wind segment, the biggest one that we have. Of course, the revenue or production reduction was quite sizable here, mainly in Estonia. Even quarter of our production was lost, if you want to call it that, compared to last year. So in terms of how the revenues got boosted, then you can see that in Estonia, the big reduction in production actually came with much higher price. So that actually gave a positive impact on revenues. On the other hand, in Lithuania, the small reduction came with the small increase of price, and actually that meant that revenues from Lithuania remained reasonably flat. On Lithuania, I'd like to highlight that over the course of this quarter, we exited from the feed-in tariff systems and actually paired these operating wind farms with longer-term PPAs. So essentially, we extended the revenue security for these operating assets by a few years and actually receive a higher price. So in that we managed to get a bit of uplift from the power prices as well, and we expect more from next quarters. And finally, revenues EBITDA 8.3 million euros higher, 4.8 million euros higher. Perhaps final point to mention is the operating expenses that we bring out on a quarterly basis in the sort of middle lower part of the screen, and there it's good to see that it's roughly still unchanged compared to last year, small growth, but in Q3 even a bit, 100,000 more per megawatt. Sorry, 100 euros more per megawatt, I should say, on a quarterly basis. But of course, as the inflation and pressures are within the economy, and some of our agreements are also linked with certain indexes, then there we expect to see upside in the coming quarters. If we turn to coal generation segment, then production reduction from Iru reduced operations this quarter. Revenues higher by even 88%, mainly on the back of the higher pellet sales, as mentioned, and also higher power price, as mentioned. So this is the really key feature behind the EBITDA performance, which was 2.3 million euros higher. Altogether, impact 0.6 million euros, as already mentioned, compared to last year. In the solar segment, production was higher, very good weather conditions we had this summer, July, August, September. And also the power price in Estonia had a positive impact, less so in Poland, where our production is under the contract for differences. And here also you can see in the left bottom side the total revenues being boosted by solar services revenues, and 3.2 million of that was due to the one-off sales of Enefit. So this is one-off impact, not much to do with EBITDA. So essentially the EBITDA performance strongly from the good production results and higher power prices. After all is said and done, then what is the bottom line? We had 50% higher net profit in Q3, so we are happy with the result. It is 9 cents per share, so reasonably good compared to last year. Also, finance costs and income taxes were lower, so that has helped us a bit. And if we now translate this into the return world, then return on equity 16.8% and return on invested capital 15% this quarter were very strong. So these we are very happy about. In terms of cash flows, was also quite important that strong cash flows we had over the quarter, so 30% higher than last year, pretty much like EBITDA performance. On the other hand, we invested around 80 million euros, as already highlighted. So 67.4 million euros went to the wind farms. On the construction being Šilalė 2, Akmenė, Tolpanvaara, also Purtse, which is a smaller amount, and then the acquisition of Tootsi wind farm for 26.9 million euros, also making up the balance. Finally, we also had almost 12 million euros of capex into solar segment, so that all visible in this quarter. And as the operating cash flow was performing well, then of course we had also support to fund the investments from internal cash flow quite well this quarter. Financing cash flow quite sizable, you can see, and I'll speak a bit more on next slide, but we took out our loans to have a healthy cash position at the end of the quarter. So altogether, we took out 130 million euros of investment loans this quarter at the end of the quarter. Outstanding loan balance 274.9 million euros, and really the net debt to EBITDA level that we have is 0.7 times, so there is still ample room for growth, and we will be expecting to utilize that over the coming quarters. What we have also seen is, of course, the drifting upwards of the Euribor rates. So our average effective interest rate that we pay on our loans has also increased from 1.3% to 1.96%. But there is a silver lining here, because of course the 60% of our current outstanding debt is already with fixed interest rates, so we are not as exposed to Euribor increases from that portion. And the rest, which is not Euribor fixed, it's due at the end of 2023. So we'll look to refinance that ahead of the maturity as well. Yeah, so I think that is pretty much it what we have from here. And also important part of our operation is our portfolio hedging. So makes sense to spend a bit of time here. So during the quarter, new contracts we signed was over 3 terawatt-hours of power, and actually after 10 years and with a price average of 124 euros per megawatt-hour. So the quarter was very beneficial to signing new long-term agreements from our side. These are highest prices we've seen. If one takes together our total portfolio from 22 up to 32, when our final contracts run out, then we have almost 10 terawatt-hours of power being sold forward. Compared to our current production, which is 1.2 terawatt-hours, it's almost 10 years worth of production. But of course, as our production grows, then this is a smaller percentage. Then also to highlight perhaps here is that the recent quarter hedging has also brought our average portfolio hedge price higher. So it's now today around 72.5 euros per megawatt-hour. And if maybe finally one looks at 2023 as the next year, then on the graph you can see that we expect to have 1.5 terawatt-hours of production, which combines both operating and the under construction parks on the left-hand side, so green and dark blue bars. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that we've signed actually 953 gigawatt-hours of power purchase agreements against that. So if one compares that and adds in also the feed-in tariffs that we have, it's actually around 67% of our production is hedged with fixed price for 2023. And if one digs deep enough in our interim report, then you can also see that it's hedged at 86 euros per megawatt-hour and a bit above. So the light white bar on the top of the blue and yellow bars is really to do with the feed-in premium in Estonia, where we receive the market price and the feed-in premium on top. So a lot of numbers on this one, but I think relevant. So I think without further ado, back to Aavo to sum up.
Yeah, thanks, Veiko. So how to summarize the Q3 with one word? I think still good to see that we are on track. What we have said in order to grow 4 times our capacity. So we have acquired a few projects during Q3. We are in line with projects under construction. Of course, we would expect it would be more happy to have more wind, but this is something we couldn't do. But at the same time, we're able to maintain our assets, and all in all, as Veiko showed, we are happy with the results. And here I would like to also say thank you to all our 60,000 investors who've been on this journey with us, and then also say good thanks to our team for their work and contribution in Q3 going forward. So thank you once again joining us, and that was all we wanted to show. And then now we are ready to take your questions. So I see that here are few. So first question is about this possible price cap in Estonia in Q3 could not affect Enefit Green's wind power if earnings are reinvested to renewables, but does that include Iru power plant? As I said, that the exact measures will be worked out by the end of this year. So when we will see exactly that what will be Estonia's position, but that will we kind of assess the total power generation of Enefit Green, and how its average price has been calculated. I mean, what is a period of a calculation, and so on and so forth. So after seeing a first draft of Estonian measures, I think we can formulate also our positions regarding Iru. What is the current wind power PPA market price level for long-term contracts?
Yeah, I'll take that. So as we have signed agreements in this quarter for 7 to 10 years length, right? Then we have been able to secure these at 124 euros per megawatt hour on average. So of course this starts from 22 and it goes until 32. Sorry, it starts from 23 and goes to 32. So this is the period. And in case you're a wind developer, you'll probably not have immediate power to sell, but in case you have, then that is the level we have realized. Then Charles, I see, is asking, Charles, what is the projected net debt EBITDA by the end of 23? Yeah, depends on the EBITDA of 23, I guess. So this is quite a volatile measure in our business, given that our exposure to power prices is quite sizable. I mean, we will see this increasing. I mean, we have it currently 0.7 times as shown. We've said that as we go through the investment cycle, then we are likely to see it to grow to 4 to 5 times, maybe a bit above. So I think we'll be roughly halfway there by the end of 23. But once again, this actually depends on the EBITDA that we'll have next year.
I think the next one is from Pasi also too.
Hello to Pasi. So have you had any margining or cash collateral issues regarding the power price movements? No, we haven't. We sell our power forward using physical agreements, which are not collateralized. So actually we don't really need to post collateral against the market price movements.
Okay, there's another question from Charles. Do your investment plans include anything beyond wind and solar assets, e.g. THP, storage, anything else? What about acquisitions? Any other markets than current considered? Very good question. Yeah, I mean, we have said that during strategy period, we see most of our growth coming from onshore wind and solar, not from a CHP. But yes, the storage is something we are actually looking into very, very closely. So that I can only say that some of our new solar projects, which are currently in different development phases, already take into account also storage there as well. And we also do look very closely, or actually plan to develop so-called hybrid solutions in all our home markets. So that basically it is wind, solar, and storage connected to the same connection points in order to exhaust the most of connection capacity. And about acquisitions, yes, we are. I mean, interested, of course, to acquire different pre-developed projects, as we did also last quarter with 200 megawatt of PV or solar in Estonia. Was a good example on that. So we've said that our development strategy foresee that we are mostly focusing on greenfield developments or acquisition of pre-developed AI projects. So we are not looking so much on acquisition of operational assets. And what about geography? No, I mean, next 4 or 5 years, we do not foresee that expansion of our activities to other markets, because as we show, the high power prices in the Baltic Sea region also demonstrate that there is not enough renewable capacity in this region. So, and taking into account all the national climate goals and renewable goals, we see a lot of opportunities also to grow our business here in Finland, Baltics, and Finland. So,
next one from Basi. Was 2023 power hedging price of euro 86 per megawatt hour for the whole group? Indeed. So this is actually the average price of all our signed power purchase agreements, or from our side, power sales agreements for 2023. As if you draw back to one slide, then you can see that it was 953 gigawatt hours here on the yellow bar in 2023. So 86 euros per megawatt hour is the average of all these agreements. So that being then part of it being Estonian power, part of it Lithuanian power, but this is the total.
Okay, there is a question from Pavels. Why no wind or solar projects in Latvia in a pipeline? Yes, we are not in our near-term pipeline, but if I scroll back to our long-term pipeline, so here you can see that there is also Latvian flag represented in our long-term development pipeline. So those are the projects which what to expect to reach the investment decision after 23. So we have projects also in Latvia for onshore wind and then solar. But as we are in early development stage at the moment, we do not disclose exact capacities and names, because the long-term pipeline is very dynamic by its nature. So that the projects, can be moved forward, can move back. Some of projects may drop off a table. Some projects can come in, and so on and so forth. But as Latvia is one of our home markets, we certainly will develop the renewable projects for Latvia as well, because we all know that Latvia because it has a huge potential. Because Latvians' renewable generation has been basically based on a hydro. But Latvia has also said out that by 2030 they expect that there should be additional 800 megawatt of wind. Of course, they have not specified how much of offshore or how much of onshore, but still taking into account the Latvia's location, long coastline, very good wind conditions, very strong grid. So there is a huge potential to develop renewables in Latvia. So.
Yeah, Pavels, you are relying on PPAs in your development. What about regional competitors? Any information on their strategy, as government support schemes are not there anymore? Indeed, the old support schemes where there were feed-in tariffs and sizable subsidies on top of the market price have not been there for a while. But what we do see is that the Estonian government is actually holding auctions for the essentially price floor. And this has been very popular in Estonia when we looked at, I think the first results were in June this year, and also Enefit Green received part of it, but actually it was very popular with the solar developers. And we know that the Estonian government is willing to have another round of, if my memory serves me right, 650 gigawatt hours beginning of next year, and then in addition, the 24 and 25 additional roughly terawatt hour being combined to be auctioned. So I think this is really the new world in a way, where the governments, if they want to kind of support and find ways how to stimulate the additional development, will have to offer some sort of price floor, because essentially it is just for the protection during the years when there is too much power or too little demand. What PPA does is actually in parallel allowing also the private market participants, buyers of power for longer term, to actually go for the procure and hedge their costs, so to speak. And actually these two worlds work very well together. I think our competitors, we see them active on these Estonian government auctions or for the price floor. We've seen them also active in the PPA market. So I think everybody is using really the same tools to manage their risks.
You see that there is no more questions, but yeah, as I said, feel free to contact also us anytime you like. So we'll answer all your questions. And thanks again for joining us tomorrow and today, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye.